I was just wondering if in your planning for the exhibition opener, the preseason game, because there's only two of them, do you want to get to your rotations as quickly as possible and save all the experimentation for practice? Or how are you approaching that? And secondly, what did you see from today's practice that stood out to you?
I think for the rotations, I don't know that we're there yet. I think we got to give people a little bit more of a look and figure out what we have. So that's going to be a process with two exhibition games that, if we jump into what is a perceived rotation, it might be too soon. We may not know. So, in a sense, this may be a process that takes longer. So we'll see. So this may be and to be frank, with the condensed schedule, that might be a process that kind of goes on all year. So we have to be flexible with the rotations and roster and who knows what happens with COVID or injuries. So, we'll probably err on the side of not making any real firm decisions, being very flexible and kind of using as many guys as possible in the interim. And then today, I think we got to continue to build our defense. Yesterday we had a more controlled scrimmage, and our defense I thought was excellent. Took a step. Today we played more of a scrimmage, and I thought our defense, got a little picked apart. So we just got to keep building. It's so new. It's the game happens so quickly that there needs to be a process to hone in on those principles and that connectivity with one another. And today the defense proved we needed to work at it.
Christian Winfield.
Hey, Coach, how's it going?
Good, thanks.
I'm just curious. We've been talking a lot about guys towards the top end of the roster, towards the top end of the rotation that obviously hasn't been set yet. But you've got a lot of guys that are younger that haven't really had too much time in the league. I'm curious as to how you're keeping them, I guess, engaged, right? When there's so much depth at certain positions that you've got guys that are really just trying to develop. And B, what's it like working with some of those younger players, and how are you balancing those responsibilities of developing those young guys versus actually taking some of the veteran guys and trying to establish some type of competitor?
That's a great question. I think that lends itself to why NBA staffs have grown so much. When I came in the league, it was like a coach and 3 assistants. Now there's 10 assistants, player development, the video room that's on the court with guys. So, you end up with so many guys able to help aid in player development, and you have to delegate responsibilities. So it's important that those guys, if they're not in the rotation, if they're clearly on the developmental side, that they still feel, valued, they still feel hope, they still are striving for something continually without losing the motivation because they're not playing immediately. That's a part of being a professional athlete, and that's especially a part of being a developmental player. So, when you have a team as talented as some of the guys we have at the top end of our roster, that it's just cut and dry. That you can't play everybody, and those guys are going to play a lot. So some of these guys who are NBA players but aren't quite ready to break into our rotation have got to stay hungry. We've got to really foster their development while they're not necessarily getting NBA action. So it is a real skill to develop players in that scenario, but that's something I think NBA teams have all honed in on and are doing a pretty good job. And we have a great player development department, and we'll continue to work with those guys. But you're right, on the human side, it's even more important to keep them engaged, to keep them striving and feeling motivated to continue to improve, whether they see the floor or not this season.
Alex Schiffer.
Hey, Steve, you talked yesterday kind of about how you look at the center position with the traditional versus the stretch. I'm curious where Reggie Perry kind of fits into your philosophy there. It seems like he's kind of on the fence with that. And it hit me yesterday. Jacques would have been the last player and team you faced in college. Has that come up at all with you two together since you came there, or is that off limits with him ending your career?
I actually forgot about that. That's great. Yeah, good catch. I'll have to bring it up to JV. Man, they had a tough team, a lot of pros, and really good program. But Reggie, Reggie's he's a modern 5 in many respects. He's that Fortunately for Reggie's development as a developmental player, he can stretch the floor with a three, and he also can make plays for his teammates. So he's got a lot of skills and attributes that allow him that versatility to be, a small ball five in the modern game.
We'll go to Malika Andrews.
Steve, have you put any thought, or what is the degree of thought you've put towards coaching in an empty arena? Is that anything that makes things different for you?
Coaching with or without fans will be different for me at this point. I'm pretty green. Obviously, I have a lot of history and experience with the game in the league, but actually sitting in that seat is going to take a little bit of time to get used to it, whether there's fans or no fans. But it's a shame that it just happens to be that we're in a global pandemic and we're not going to have fans, and that's the right call. Until we're able to safely have fans. And so we have to live with it. I think I said earlier, that we have to be incredibly versatile and mobile this year and fluid and be able to adapt and make changes. And, the teams that are more willing to accept that this isn't going to be regular and things are going to constantly be in flux, I think has an advantage. So, I don't know if it's a good thing to start out my coaching career with no fans yelling at me to call a timeout or whatever they want to say, or if it's a bad thing because, our business loves having fans and the competitive nature that fans aid and inspire. So let's hope they come back soon, but obviously that means that we have a healthy society in some stretch.
We'll have to ask you next year which one you prefer after you've had a couple of both under your belt.
Good idea.
Tom Dowd.
Steve, yesterday, a lot of talk about versatility, particularly on the offensive end, to the point where, it feels like positional designations don't necessarily mean a whole lot. Does that come into play more on the defensive end in terms of like sorting that out, or are you looking for the same kind of flexibility?
No, I think one of the trademarks of this kind of positionless era is that versatility, that flexibility to play a traditional rim protector, to be able to switch as much as possible, to be able to plug and play with a small ball five that can switch everything, to maybe switch everything with the traditional five. So having those different facets and flexibility defensively are really important. I think you see a lot of teams that have different profiles that challenge you in different ways. So the more versatility you have, I think the better. And so I think clearly we have some versatility offensively because we have a lot of guys that can make plays and shoot the ball. But, defensively, that's where we got to get tight, is really be able to mix and match, stick to our principles, but be able to mix and match the profiles of our individual players to collectively give ourselves an advantage depending on the matchups.
Go back to Christian Winfield.
Hey, Coach, just quickly, has DeAndre made you laugh yet? We're hearing stories about him being just lighthearted and whatnot. Just what's the experience been like getting to know him?
DJ he's definitely made me laugh. We have a pretty quiet team, so it's great to have someone with DJ's personality who is not quiet and talks. And so, he's a welcome personality, in an otherwise fairly chill group. So DJ's fun loving, great personality. He brings that extra energy every day with that personality that's a little bit different from the rest of the group. So we need him for that alone. And he definitely is worth a few laughs every day.
Simone Sandri.
Hey, Steve. On the empty arena issue, I kind of wonder, are you coaching defense slightly different because of the empty arena environment? It seems that with empty arenas, reps are able to hear contact better and react to that. And the proof is that in the bubble, the foul call skyrockets, especially in the first few weeks. Do you keep that in mind in practice, or basketball is just basketball?
I don't think we think so much about the foul calls are affected by that in a sense. I think that is a much more difficult thing to manipulate. But I think we have learned that in the bubble, the bench, the talking, when you can hear and see everything your bench says, that it had a big impact defensively on a lot of teams. That's the word that I'm hearing. So, we definitely have to be engaged, the staff and as players, and make some noise for our team, give them energy and purpose, but also be able to dictate sometimes, to be able to help a guy who's lost, to be able to, get ourselves in our sets and our schemes defensively. So I think that there is a big difference in that respect, because when the arena's full, who knows if a guy hears you or not. You can try, but when the arena's empty, the word is that in the bubble, you could really, really dictate and help your team get into its schemes and in their right positions and talk them through different scenarios. So that is something that I think we have to try to adapt to and be really good at.
Got time for one more question for Coach. We'll go to Steve Lichtenstein.
Hi, Steve. I don't know if you saw what Grant Hill or heard what Grant Hill said on NBA TV yesterday about how he's looking forward to when you're getting your first technical and thinks it's going to be in your first game. But having not done this, do you think you're going to be more of the emotional type on the sideline, or you expect more from yourself?
I feel like I'm just going to be a meme for Grant Hill the rest of my life now that I've taken this role. But it's a great question. I've thought about it, and I want to say that that I'll be under control and more on the mellow side, but that might be pretty presumptuous. I've always been a bit fiery and emotional as a player, and that kind of competitiveness and passion is really hard to subdue. So we'll see. I feel like I'll be reasonable over there, but who knows? I may not react well to the moment and be a little bit loud, and then I'll have to adapt and kind of slap myself on the wrist and find a nice middle ground where I can be passionate and emotional in a competitive sense, but also under control.